Wait and see. Wait and see.
So what are we here for, Irene?
We're here to talk about time,
Yeah.
designed by Ed and Jay
Yeah.
with Mutina for Domus. And I guess how I have challenged it in this restoration and project, essentially.
Okay. So shall I talk about Mutina first?
I guess you could.
This isn't rehearsed, by the way, as you'll probably be able to tell quite quickly. So I'm Jay Osgerby, and I work with Ed Barber. And we have a long-standing relationship with Domus in the UK, and Irene, who used to work with us. I guess we got to know Domus through Mutina, didn't we? And I don't know how many people know about Mutina, but they're quite an avant-garde, probably the most interesting tile manufacturer in Italy. And I think what's really interesting about them is that the owner, Massimo, or one of the owners, came from a long line of tile making, not a long line, families, like, so he was son of a tile maker, grandson of a tile maker. I don't know how far back it went, but I imagine it went back to the Romans. But he sort of started the company after, in a way, as a protest about the way that the tile market had gone, which was, and no disrespect, because I'm sure they're very saleable, but a lot of tiles pretend to be something different. They pretend to be wood, or they pretend to be, marble. And I think Massimo felt early on that a tile's a tile, and we should celebrate the fact it's ceramic, or porcelain, and it should have its own character. And so we started. Tell me if I go on forever.
No, it's good. Yeah, go on.
Cut. That was great. Anyway, it's so nice to meet you all. So Massimo then set up Mutina Tiles and commissioned, starting off with Patricia Chiola, who, as you all know, is like the machine gun of the design world, and is brilliant, full of energy, and does really great stuff. But she really kind of, I guess, helped Mutina reevaluate what a tile is, and they got us involved. And our collaboration with Mutina has been really successful, but has often been connected with history and the past. The first collection we did was a collection called Muse, where we, I guess, looked around London for inspiration and colour inspiration particularly. And the idea with Muse was that you could create kind of groups of colours. So say, I don't know how many it is, nine different colour groups. And within that group, there are, say, 15 variations in the tile. And it's been phenomenally successful. But again, it was one of those things where, it was about us thinking about the past, thinking about how things could vary through time, how production wasn't homogeneous back in the day. And should I just talk about time quickly? So that led us on to time. We've done a number of collaborations, but this particular one is concerned really with how things wear over time. So how surfaces become shiny through as people use them and walk over them. How church steps can become polished, and conversely, how other things can make smooth surfaces less smooth. Have what's the word? Rough, that's the one. Rough and the Smooth. That would have been the alternative title. So that's a bit of a background.
Yeah, that'd be a bit rough, wouldn't it?
Why I'm here.
Why
are you here?
You're answering the first question, or it's like, what was the creative process and inspiration behind the time collection?
I've done that, right.
You've done that,
your
right.
question. What was your inspiration behind using time?
I think we're supposed to do all your questions first.
Oh, okay.
Right.
All of them? Shouldn't we alternate?
We could alternate. Go.
Okay, so time, brilliant collection.
Yeah, amazing collection.
Knockout. But you're really the first person to take it and do something with it. And the way that you've taken it on is really unusual, I think. Yeah,
for me, I bought this house about a year and a half ago, and while I was getting to know it, I had to strip it apart and stuff, and it was quite tense. It was holding a lot of history, and I was in the room upstairs looking out towards the square, and there was this amazing light coming in, and it basically left this shadow, and I was like, I've bought a box of shadows, the rest is rotten. So I really need to get to work on this space. So I was like, through the looking glass, this is it, Alice in Wonderland. I can play with scale, thresholds, all of this. And then I thought, Ed and Jay are about to bring out time, because I knew you were working on it pre-COVID when I was still with you guys. And I thought, time, worn down spaces, this was my analogy of it. Worn down spaces, this is going to fit, and then I can push the boundaries with all the patterns. So for me, having the overarching like Alice in Wonderland, I thought, here goes. So when you come down, the from I call it the top 3 floors are enhancing and revealing. And when you come to the ground floor and you're coming down to here, you're literally sucked down by scale. So I oversized the module of 200 by 200 into 4. So you got these 800 tiles and not black and white. And the reason I then juxtaposed them was because the house is so old, things aren't going to be straight. And I just felt it gave a bit of an interest as well, not meeting on the nose and mixing the rough and the smooth, and then the 2 colours, the white and the Sahara. And I really wanted that to feel like a blob of ink that just kind of went out through, created a double hallway. The second part of the hall was the old kitchen. So that was the beginning of like the scale. And then in the room at the front, the concept I came up for there was illusion. So it's a very low space. And I wanted to bring in like small patterns. So for me, it's like hopscotch. So you've got 2 roughs, 1 smooth, 2 roughs, 1 smooth. And when you look through that space, it feels like kind of like a carpet in a way. And it's really cool.
Because you can really see there's a pattern emerging, can't you?
And then this space was about, so I really wanted to do something quite bold and to do with nature and bring the green in. So here was thresholds. So for me, it was really important to have 2 outside spaces that were held together with the interior and vice versa. So you could open the doors and literally have this going on. And again, the rhythm of this was 5-1-5-1-5-1. But technically, so when I approached Domus saying, would you like to partner? I was like, look, I'm going to push the boundaries with the patterns, and I'm going to push it with the technicalities. So for instance, especially here, because the first patio before the kitchen is on a pedestal system, and that is for the drainage. So it sits within these trays. And then in the kitchen, it's on a slab with underfloor heating. And then out here, we've got the slot drains. So Marcel is here from Studio Dira, who was the executive architects with me. And yeah, any technical questions, we can pull you on that one. But it was really interesting to see how we could actually utilise the same tile and using the rough and the smooth. But when it went back to the pedestal, it was interesting because firstly, we were due to finish a week later, and I was like, we cannot be cutting all these tiles and it's sinful, so let's work with what we have. So in a way, it's like a little intro to the piano that folds along here. So it works with the kind of parameters that we were given. And then just on the other thing is, there was a moment of like 1840 and 2025, or 24-25, and in the most kind of traditional room, which is the living room on the ground floor, I reinstated an old fireplace, which was in the same kind of era of the house, but the kind of intermediate part where you go to the fireplace, I was like, oh, slate, I can't do that. So I was like, time have the little slivers, and we're using that elsewhere. So I was like, this for me merges it. And then that allowed every fireplace that it was being used or not, that it had a little introduction of the tiles. So the living room has it as set back, and technically you had to do them flush because of the gas. Whereas downstairs, it's like the Rubik's Cube in the front room. So it's literally the 200 slab, and it keeps it low. And then you've got to have the escape for the air, for the gas as well. And then in the closed fireplaces, in the other spaces, it just presents itself along with the old sub-hearth, and kind of introduces the fireplace where we've got a little kind of curve. So in a way, time was really what grounded this project and allowed it to play with these, wonderful words.
John was saying earlier on that it's very bold move to choose one collection for the whole house.
Yeah, well, it made sense.
And did it? Yeah. Did it?
What did you say? Inspired.
I mean, it's quite helpful to just quickly plug it for a second. It can be used inside and outside, as you can see. And because you've got the combination of non-slip, and if you stay behind afterwards, we can talk deals. If you can use the combination of the rough and the smooth for, obviously inside as well. So as you've done here with, wet areas, you can use this, and then other areas which are sort of softer, but both work outside. But taking the product and using it on a house like this in the way that you have, what were the challenges?
What were the challenges? Was that a question? I guess the technicalities of the substrate.
There must have been a lot of drawing.
Was it 280 tons we took out? Yeah, 280 tons came out from here right up to the front, okay? And then with a wheelbarrow, because the side, it was a small digger. But I guess it was making sure, I was saying to Marcel earlier, what was great, because I washed down this floor earlier, which I do every day, and it falls. And that's proven that there's a very slight fall, and it goes to that slot drain or that one. I don't think there wasn't. I think the beauty of it was because it's so thick.
Well, I remember seeing your drawings, right? Your
Yes.
original layout drawings, and I just thought you were actually mad.
Yeah, I know. I am mad. But what I loved, and with Marcel and the team, was like, we can't do that, and was actually mitering it, and it actually can take it because it's thick.
Yeah.
And you'll see in the bathroom upstairs, which was the name for that was worn, so a little bit like what you were talking about earlier. When you look at the plan of that, the rough is like in a triangle. So if someone had walked over that over and over and over for years, it would naturally wear down. But when we came to doing the edge, it had to be cut really neatly. And I mean, the Tyler did it. The detailing were there. Was there any other, would you say, Marcel? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no, there was no technical hitches basically. It was a dream to work with.
There's another question here, which I'm going to fire at you.
This is like Monopoly.
I know, I feel like it's a Christmas game.
No, it's Trivial Pursuit.
Okay,
I
so
can't
you'll
lose.
go next on mine.
Back to you, but I think you might have done this. What was the thought process and purpose of the two finishes? You've done that.
Done that.
Okay.
Non-slip, inside, outside.
Fine. Okay. In light of this curation, how has your vision for the Time collection evolved?
In the light of what you've done?
Yes.
Well, I just didn't ever think of it like this. I mean, so numerous and so differently done. I mean, I don't think even, you know, how Mutina really tried to show it, and they showed it in loads and loads of different ways, but nothing like the way that you've approached it. So in the way that you've done it is, it actually flows, doesn't it? It actually really feels like there's movement through, it sort of takes you through the whole house.
Yeah.
Which is great. But if you had to do it again,
I love that question. I've had that many times.
what would you do differently?
I say absolutely
apart
nothing.
from use the burlap.
I wouldn't. I will always use Mutina, and I'll always use Domus, and that is hand on heart. That is what I do on all my projects, and I try to use your collections, especially the ones I was involved with too, which is quite nice. What would I do again? I don't know. I'm kind of drawn to this. I was going to put an anomaly in with, and then I just felt it. And I remember discussing that with you, and Kasia saying, "Will I put that in?" It's like, nah. Let's just keep it as it is.
This is Kasia, by the way, so you put your hand up. So Kasia,
come on, Kasia's got more questions.
The project designer
yes.
for the Mutina.
I remember going down to the studio and saying, Kasia, look, I've got these ideas. And then we went through the things, and we literally, I don't know, maybe later you want to see the drawing. It's stitched together, literally A4 after A4. It's in the front room. I could bring it out now and show it. But it's literally how you hand marked it up and got these rhythms, and you understand the whole plan together.
But even making
what would I do differently?
Yeah.
Nothing. Really, actually, I wouldn't do anything. I really wouldn't.
Really?
Yeah, maybe just a different colour.
Well, that's a good answer.
Yeah. There's no other space that I would tile. That's the thing, because I tiled.
There's nothing left.
I tiled. Like, I mean, you could have run it up the walls.
Yeah.
But I mean,
that's a lost opportunity.
Shush. Stop it. Yeah. No. Okay. So answer to your question is no. I wouldn't do anything differently.
Cool. Well, the way I was going to just say quickly about how Kasia and we in the studio actually made these. So when we were trying to convince Mutina to do it, we used the art shop quite a lot. So Cowling and Wilcox on Shoreditch High Street is the source of lots of pigments and stuff. And when we were actually making the outside tiles, we were using all sorts of things, weren't we? Like sand and... Where were you finding it all from? Yeah, yeah. So she lives in the Sahara Desert, so that's why she's got so much sand in the garden. But no, we were literally making these things, and then the way it works is we actually make mock-ups using bits of watercolor, some ink, bits of plaster of Paris, and then we actually send them. We DHL them to Mutina, and then they then sort of almost do a live unpacking of the things, and we get a call saying, "Oh, this is really interesting. It's going to be impossible to make, but we'll try." And then we go through this process of. Because Mutina is, they have a lot of local manufacturing in that area. I forgot it's called Sassuolo, isn't it? Down there, and it's really the epicenter of Italian tile making. So they have loads of really interesting artisans and factories and production. So they then go between one and the other, and they sort of do a competition to see which manufacturer can do a better interpretation of what the designer wants. And then we go out and check it. And so it's almost like doing furniture or another type of product where there's a series of prototypes. But it all starts very humbly in the studio in Shoreditch.
Yeah, but also with Primavera, I know it's not this, but I was with you guys at that stage, and we went and we got loads of pencils, and we stripped the pencils and we cut up all the things and we dropped them into these plaster things. But then there was a power cut in the studio, and we were like, excellent, everyone's off the computers, we can use them. And we were like, strip down all the yellows, strip down all the reds, and we just had this pile of stuff, and we were just like...
Well, what was interesting about that is that so Primavera, if you've seen it, is like an interpretation of terrazzo in porcelain. And originally the brief was a terrazzo, and of course terrazzo is made up of sort of minerals, you know, or chopped bits of marble, you know, and they're kind of, but they're more or less sort of square, roundish, or kind of naturally. And of course, because we'd got these pencils from the art shop and we'd cut them out and we broke them up, they were like pencil lead bits dropped on. And actually, it was purely serendipitous, really, that led to Primavera, which is now made up of extrusions of porcelain in different colours sprinkled on. So it looks like hundreds and thousands. And it was really just because of the art shop.
Absolutely.
And of course, we didn't want to do a terrazzo, because that isn't what Mutina's about. It's a modern interpretation of a traditional material.
It still feels it like that, right? It still feels.
Yeah. It feels like that, yeah. You can feel the reference to the past, but it's through new lenses, if you like, which is kind of what we try to do with most things we do, really. So in other words, find something really brilliant and then interpret it. Anything else? Any questions?
Did you finish your questions?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, right.
Particularly tough ones for Irene.
Ha 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 ha.
So
Well,
one question for me is, I'm an architect by degree, but into design by profession, right? And I always have a sort of difficult relationship with ceramic tiles. Right? But when you start seeing like Domus,
Yeah.
and Mutina, that they are design driven,
Yeah.
that's for me is very, very important. So the ceramic stops being ceramic. It's an expression. It's something that it requires a concept, requires a feeling. So how do you see ceramic? Because a client asked me that just 2 days ago. I said, Diego, I want to change the floor, but I'm thinking of wood, I'm thinking what material, I said ceramic, I love ceramic.
They say no.
I love no.
Oh, love.
I love
Yeah.
ceramic.
Yeah.
But it has to be design. It has to be. So what is your thoughts? Not in this house, that is very personal. What are your thoughts in ceramics, especially in London, for residential projects?
Do it.
Yeah.
How do you think
Well, the thing is, we're not used to it really in this country.
That's my
In the Mediterranean, everyone's got it, right? And it's part of the culture. It's what you expect. It's, you know, here. I mean, don't forget, we're only just coming out of wall-to-wall carpet. Oh, and worst case, carpet on the loo seat. You know. So we're
doing wall-to-wall tiles now. So
but it's definitely obviously it's a strong and growing proposition for flooring.
For Mutina, when they promote their products,
they
have photographs of living rooms with their ceramics.
They do, yeah.
So you can convince the clients of it.
It's
very Italian.
Yeah,
right?
Can do.
Very London as well.
It's a difficult sell because, you know, I mean, premium perception is that, you know, if you're going to have stone, then you have limestone or marble, or you have oak or, you know, Denison or something like that. You know, and it's like, you know, so, but actually, you'd think it would be impossible to sell Mutina, for example, in the Nordics, because they come from a heritage of wooden floors and rugs and carpets, right? But actually, it's doing really, really well there because it's brilliant for underfloor heating. So in terms of environmental strength, that's really, really good. It's incredibly, a porcelain tile is kind of bulletproof. You can't really do anything to damage it.
It's a ceramic, right?
It's porcelain, I think.
Porcelain, really?
Yeah, it doesn't actually say, but everything they do, I think, is porcelain. I actually don't know the difference. It's not stone, it's stone, yeah.
It's for the coating that I was having doubts. It's for the
Oh, from the surface?
Yes.
Yeah, but you know how they make these? It's an amazing process where they have these incredibly long kilns that are like a kilometre long or something crazy. And they start off with the base material and compress it, and then they essentially sprinkle pigment and aggregate, minute bits of aggregate onto it, press it down again, mould it, and then they fire it on these really, really long, it's like a crazy bakery, but for tiles.
Fast.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. But I certainly think ceramic tiles are a growing market in the UK.
It's also contemporary design, isn't it?
Yeah, and colour too, I suppose.
Natural stone, I mean, carpets, you know,
Yeah,
is what it is. Stone is very classic and very traditional, and ceramics just open the door for contemporary design through all the things that you do and what you
Yeah.
do and we do. And you know, it's endless really. You can do everything.
It's like a weave. It's a weave. Like there's so much energy put into rugs and everything, and why not do this with the tiles as well? You know, it really is.
And it's established. I mean, this isn't new.
No.
Yeah.
This really has been going on since the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's sort of stalled a little bit because the market stalled a bit. But
Yeah.
generally speaking, the appetite for hard surfaces is very strong.
And also the use of colour on the floors, like, because people are always like, okay, we've got 5 surfaces, the ceiling and 4 walls, but actually for me, putting it on the floor is like the best part, and then everything grows. I mean, it's even with the colour, like when I knew these were the back hole, the scale, coming to that, and then I knew I was going to use this Santorini, like that's just amazing, but always thinking like the 360 with the colours and how they will meet. Just builds that 3-dimensional. Yeah,
Sorry for asking another question.
no, it's great.
there's no limit.
You always, I mean, I love food designs. I love color and I love patterns. But your colors, as far as I remember, in your collections are very muted.
Mm.
So I love that red, as you pointed, right? But there is a serenity in them.
Yeah.
Is there any reason why you don't explore
So,
and colors is part of your design ethos?
well, we do in other products. So, I mean, when we were working on this range, though, we're probably 6 colours short, and they were probably the ones which were brighter at either end of the colour spectrum. And I think they wanted to see how this went first, because it's to put a lot of colour on the floor, especially in somewhere like UK, is pretty challenging. So in terms of our practice, we use colour a lot, but it's more used on furniture pieces or products like bellhop lamp for floss, something that can move around rather than taking over the space. You know, it's an accent, yeah. No, I love colour though, and actually in our limited edition work we use colour a lot, because then you're only selling 8 or 10 objects, and there's always a buyer for one thing. Not everybody wants a really bright sort of yellow or an object of scale, which is this colour. I mean, I love it, but so colour, sort of experiments with colour happens a lot, but on smaller scale. I wouldn't say never though. The other thing that's quite tricky is reds are really difficult in ceramics, because to get really good reds you need cadmium, which isn't good. You can't use it anymore. So lots of beautiful red glass from Vanini, for example, or from the Nordics, from what was that really nice glass company that Itala used to do those really nice red candle things. They can't make them anymore because it's toxic, which is kind of fair enough, but so some colours are limited just from the chemicals that you can use to generate them.
I'm really curious because I get a great sense of like play
Yeah.
in your design,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see like certain connections with stuff like how the honed pattern on the more worn kind of looks like the leached bricks from like the mineral and stuff coming out of the bricks. But like I'm really curious about how you get to your kind of like composition. Like how do you get there?
Well, I think I'm a storyteller, essentially. I cannot build a project or anything without having a strong story. Like this house is full of stories. And for me, that grounds it. It's a little bit like explaining about the tiles. We can play with Alice in Wonderland scale, all of that. That is born out of the storytelling. And then also with the colours, it kind of comes in that way as well. But there was someone earlier, we were talking about the tiles, and it was like it's like a playground, because you've got hopscotch and then you've got this thing and whatever. But yeah, a lot of my work's really playful because I do a lot of stuff by hand, and the stories don't stop coming. It's a bit of a problem.
I think it's an Irish issue.
It's a bit of a problem. So I have to stop. I have to put the gate down and just go, stop now. Because even like the other day, I was like, when Domus, we had the 3-day showroom here. I was like, oh, on the square, the tiles are square. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, why didn't I think? I said, oh, why don't I just put a little black dot in the corner? So, and then the windows, you know, there's some windows that are square, but like at 45. Oh, of course we could pretend.
Is that where the
tile.
idea came from? The windows?
No. I mean, I could make another story and make it come from the windows, but no. I mean, I could have said on the square, and then we go for a square green tile, and it could be born out of that. But I'd be completely lying. It really did come from the place, the scale, and the patterns and everything, and just having fun. And I was thinking, design. It's like, I suppose this house was the client, so I could just do what I felt, and it kind of led me, and it allowed. It's like, let's test this like Flanders red, this box on top of the Sahara and the Dover white, and that really works well. And then you've got this pink accent, so it's like, what can go wrong? Do you know what I mean? And if you don't test it, like there's somebody asked me, why would you go to the extent of having so many stories and so much colour kind of junctions? I'm like, well, why not? Because
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, it's like it's quite brave because most people can't do colour like that. They find it really hard.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
also curious.
Yeah.
I was talking to your colleague earlier,
Yeah.
and I said the first time I walked in,
just 360. Yeah.
you had juxtapositions of the way you've laid things.
Yes.
And one of my designers came to me and showed me that. I'd be twitching. What there? You know, computer doesn't compute with that. I can't deal. But funnily enough, you know, it's so clever. How you go from one space to another.
Yeah.
And there's that balance and harmony.
But
that
also-
it works. It's quite inspiring.
But also, like when, like I'd be up and down to the studio and saying to Cashew, can I get some more samples? Can I bring? And I actually, in the old garden here, I would lay them out and I'd get some like the overgrown weeds and photograph them falling. And I was like, the verds like of these over this just were so amazing. So actually, I'm quite physical with my work, and like even the drawing that I'm talking about inside, you can just see the pen marks, and I needed more paper, so I added more paper on. So that's where, you know, I don't really, then you can take it to the computer, but there's something really nice about tangible.
The difficult thing working with you over the years, I think, has been. I consider our practice to be pretty avant-garde, but I feel like when we work with you, we're always trying to chase you in a way because you're always like one step ahead. Your mind is like a bird going through things, and I think that's reflected really well here in the way that it's sort of the movement is so extreme, and it's concept after concept, but somehow knitted together really well by an underlying principle.
Yeah, born out of oppression, I suppose.
But working for me.
No.
How do you with clients? Because this is yours. How do you do that with clients?
I usually, it's fun. I do say, look, we're going to go into a bit of a psychology.
They have
like,
no
dive.
idea what
they have
they're
no
in for.
idea.
I want to hear, okay?
No, it's interesting. I had a client recently, and he spoke about how he uses his space, and he had the same chair, but it had to face 2 different directions depending if he was working or eating. So I was like, fine, we'll play into that psychology and we'll retain that. And then there was things he really wanted to show off, and then things that he wanted to keep really quiet. So we built these vitrines depending on he was quite tall, so he could only see into the more private things. So, and then colour. So, I mean, I push them with that, and I say it will work, and then I will actually bring physical samples, and I'll always do hand drawing, 3D, and then just drop in like some Photoshop into it, and just say, trust me, like please. But I suppose, like with anyone's work, you do attract someone who is willing to take that journey with you, and who is maybe wants to go for a little bit of a deep dive.
Have you ever had a client who has been attracted to the kind of premise, then actually once you've got started, you or they have had cold feet and you've gone, oh, I'm not sure actually, we're going to be able to work together? Where they've come to you and they think, and they just don't get it or something, or you don't get them? Has that ever happened?
Not really, no.
No. So you make it work?
Yeah, make it work. Yeah. Try to make it work. Yeah.
Good.
Or I just just don't work.
Yeah.
That's the question. I make an observation. I'm always intrigued with what stories houses can tell about the life that go on with them. Mm-hmm. It's a question about the range, I guess. I know the range. I know it from the showroom. I know it from having samples in our studio. So I know there's the smooth and the rough. I know the etc. Nevertheless, when I came in, the space over there, which has the smooth white and the sort of honed cream, instinctively, my mind it feels like the kids have come in from the beach and left sand everywhere. and it was a really weird.
In a good way?
In a great way.
Okay, yeah,
It's
yeah.
really sort of, heartwarming way because it tells the story of life of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question is, does it change your perception of the range, and does it make you think differently about what you would do next, seeing one range like this done on such a scale in a domestic situation? Because that is, as you say, so rare. You never see that.
Does it make me feel different about it, do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, how does it make me feel? It makes me realise how adaptable it is, I suppose, and how it can... There's a very formal way of treating this collection, and you can make it look very historic.
Yeah.
And I've seen it done in that way, and it's actually... And again, that kind of pulls on memories and connotations of different things. But I really like the way... Seeing it this way subverted, really, in the way that you have, makes me feel like we should probably try and shoot it differently when we're doing the next campaigns for it. And actually, I mean, definitely.
There's a
show
great
this.
shoot house. Right.
What's the day rate?
yeah. No,
No,
it's
but-
booked up for the next few weeks.
But it'd be interesting to see if we said to you, for
Get you in,
example,
yes.
if we said to you, "What can you do? What you've done, but turn it up 20%." I wonder what you would do with it next. Or if we then added additional colours, because Mutina are brilliant we've just added new collections for new colours for Muse, and we're working on Primavera ones. But there's no doubt there'll be more colours coming for this collection. I'd be really interested. I'm not asking you. I'm not putting you on the spot. But when it happens, would you have another go?
Yeah, I'd start with Cinderella because I feel like Cinderella in this house sometimes because I'm always mopping the floor.
But it comes up really well, doesn't it?
No, it does come up very well. But I've lost my trail of thought now.
Cinderella.
No, so I need a new narrative. Fine, so I thought maybe we'd do Cinderella. But no, I think... Yeah, maybe just do a whole room. So I think that I think going back to say the next level, the bathroom, which is in the Flanders red box, which is like a scaled down space. That was about like how 1840s house can actually, be faithful to the past, but also move forward. So you get your washing machine, your dryer, and your shower and whatnot in there. But that moment of like bringing back that red door, and then I explain that bathroom as like submerged in yellow. So all the walls are the Sahara, the floor's got the pattern, it does the kind of Escher thing, like when we put the screen, and I was like, thank God, because otherwise someone could probably get lost and fall over the step. But yeah, I think I'd like to just do whole rooms, like it'd be amazing. And yes, some more colours like would be really good.
What do you think we're missing?
Some like deep pinks.
Yeah,
Rosa
we
red.
do try pinks. It's hard to get pinks through Mutina, isn't it? Kasia and I tried that before.
I'd quite like to use some really dark ones as well.
Yeah.
Be amazing.
Have you done a project with Muse?
No, just Primavera and this one. And Lanes, maybe? Yeah, that's it. Did that answer your question in a very convoluted way?
Yeah.
But I suppose this one was great because, like, I also like to think of a bowl. So I think this is a bowl and it's a salad. And then I like bringing in the avocado. And then I like bringing in the pops of, like, weird colours when you put a mango in. And people go, ugh. And it's a bit like, yes. So I kind of like to make people feel uncomfortable, but then realise that it actually works.
So
Does that make sense?
Did you say this house was 1840?
Yes.
So imagine it's 1860, right?
Yep.
And the person who lived here, or the couple who lived here, walked through the door today. What would they think? What would I mean, of course, they'd be slightly shocked.
Yeah, God, I don't know. It's a good question. Well, they'd say, what are these things? What are these things there?
Yeah, exactly. Mind you, there's probably 38 people living here then.
Maybe, I don't know.
Well, they're quite relevant colours. I'd say all of these colours you would actually find in that time period.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
would
yeah.
actually, wouldn't you? That, apart from that, though, so the colours would be familiar, but other than that, they'd be like, holy shit. Yeah. Where's the spinning wheel gone?
What's this big tap? It's a shower.
Oh, yeah.
But they'd know the grade 2 cupboards. They'd be like, oh, that's our dresser. That's fine. The rest would be like, ooh.
There's nothing in there, though. Hello?
But also, I know that just talking about this as like kind of a textile in a way and a pattern. And somebody said something recently who had actually shot the house when it was completely derelict and came back to shoot it, to merge it together. And he was quite emotional And he said, you've been really faithful to it. And that was a really nice word. But because the textiles you'll see throughout as well were woven from the 70s fabrics into a weave of 2025, but also they've presented throughout the house. And in a way, this house is very textural and three-dimensional, and I think this lends itself to it as well. I don't know what the point of saying that, but it was something to do with, you know,
Well, it's a connection to the past.
Yeah, there's a connection to the past. Yeah, any more questions? Liking this game.
What sizes you have?
Pardon?
Sizes for the patterns?
What size tiles? 20 by 20.
Just 20 by 20.
And then the strip ones and these small ones. So these are the sizes. But as you can see, when you put them the way that you've done them, they actually look like big format tiles, as well as really kind of small detailed tiles.
So why not big patterns, big dimensions?
Well, I think it's partly because we just come off the back of doing Primavera, which were really big tiles for Mutina, and I think that and so a lot of the input comes from them, the things that they're seeing on the market. You know, they asked us for a 20 by 20. So that was the kind of genesis of the project. And maybe also there's a degree of, there's something very familiar about that size format. And in London houses, when floors are pretty all over the place, smaller tiles make it a little bit easier to get around those sort of undulations and things. Yeah. There we go. Thank you very much.
Can I just say thank you, Irenie, for involving us in this wonderful project.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure. You've done amazing things.
Thank you.
Incredible outcome. And I think that everyone that has been through it, and everyone's written about it, photographed it, has been appropriately generous with your, and what a great result it's been. And unique, actually. Pretty unique. So, thank you, Jade, for appearing tonight and coming along
yeah, pleasure.
supporting this nice evening with these lovely people. And the next stage is for an orderly sort of tour of the property, because some of you haven't even been up into the rooms yet, and see some of the things that Irenie has achieved and made and created. And then by the time you all come down, we'll have some food ready and some more drinks. And enjoy the rest of the evening.
And just housekeeping, if you are shoes upstairs, please don't walk on the rugs because they're on loan and they have to go back.
I should say thanks to you as well. Thanks to you for using the tiles.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, as I said to you earlier, I'm just trying to keep you afloat, you know.
Yeah. It's not as easy as you think.
No, but I should have thanked Domus because when I went down on the tandem and I was like, hey, do you want to partner on this thing? And they're like, what, are you mad, lady? And I was like, no, I've got these mad patterns and stuff. And no, you were very generous to say
Sam
yes.
nailed it, to be honest. We don't get many people alive on a tandem.
Especially with nobody on the back.
Yeah, no, I know.
All the front.
Yeah.
This is a special tandem. It's a
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
three-person tandem. Yeah.
And also I think this was all born out of, like, for me, it was like activating the house before and after, and also giving a space that acts like a living showroom. So it was like convincing you can bring people in and show this as in a domestic scenario and how you can push the boundaries. So yeah, that was really important to me as well. Creating a new blueprint. Okay, right.
Thank you.
Bye.